Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me quickly invite our very esteemed panel to take this forward. Please put your hands together as I invite onto the stage President Sales Emami, Manish Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I request you to kindly take your seat this way, sir. Please put your hands together as I invite Senior VP of Zydus, Lalit Ahuja. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ahuja. This way, sir. Please keep the applause going as I invite onto the stage VP Digital Acceleration Officer, Coca-Cola India and SWA, Ambuj Singh. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Singh. Thank you for joining us. And please keep it going as I invite COO and EVP of Diageo India, Ashish Parikh. And one more time, let's hear it up for the moderator of the session, co-founder and CEO of Salescode.ai, Ranjit Kumar.
First, let me welcome Ashish, Ambuj, Lalit, and Manish. I think for the audience, we'll talk more as we go, but I think there couldn't have been a better panel to discuss about sales, the transformation in sales, what AI is up, and what eB2B that we are talking about. So we have a great panel which has an extraordinary expertise on the topics that we're going to talk. So let's give a great round of applause for the panel first. As I start, I just wanted to share with you quick thoughts on what AI is doing since we've been talking about AI. So when we say that AI is really transforming the capabilities or human capabilities, we are also looking at how the role of sales rep is going to change, how the role of a retailer is going to change. And all of this is happening so fast that in the next 3 years, we see that most of the things that we're using right now may be done in a very, very different way. So again, like I said, we may not have all the answers right now, but there are people who are exploring such boundaries, exploring a lot of things which are happening. Something is leading to some formation, something is still in progress, and we are here to find few thoughts, ideas on which we can build and delve upon. That's the purpose of this panel discussion. So with that, let me start with Manish first. So Manish has been in sales for good about 25 years. 29 years. He's been the most veteran in sales and working with top global companies like Reckitt, heading Emami as president sales right now.
We used to carry a pen and paper, right? A customer book, a log sheet, release sheets. It was all pen and paper, right? Life was a lot more simpler. We used to do our whatever data collation once in a month, do those acetates and everything stuff. And the only person who knew that what is the month-end sales was the ASM, right? Nobody else in the company knew what had happened, how the month has closed. The realization came only a week later that what really happened. Today, of course, things have changed. I mean, minute by minute, your boss knows what's happening. And I think some for the good, some actually not so good, because there is so much proliferation of data, with all the SFA and DMS sort of stuff which has come in. We guys are watching every soldier, every person on the ground, every minute, right? So there's like tons and tons of data. But is it really fundamentally now becoming a data overload, and are we really putting use to it? Are all those tools which we have all created making the life of the sales rep really faster, smoother, easier? Is it leading to more lines in the store? Is it really leading to that sales uplift we keep talking about? Is coming under a question now, right? So pen to paper has gone, lots of automation, lots of mobile on the ground. But I think what we are missing is not using that data for the person who is making that call. It's not making a difference. I think somewhere it's plateauing. It's stagnating. We are still fighting with zero growths and single-digit growths. And that, I think, is something which needs to be addressed. So I'm like going beyond your question brief.
No,
But
that's
yeah, everything is changed from a way of working perspective.
so good. Thank you. I think that was a good capturing of where it has transitioned from, where it is right now, and is it really addressing the core challenges of sales reps? And to build upon that, in a similar question, and also to build upon as a follow-up question, I'll ask from Lalit. Lalit has been heading sales for Zydus for quite almost a decade now, and he has a distinction of working with companies like Mars, GCP, Dabur, practically a lot of these top CPG companies, and had a really diverse experience on what's going on in sales. I'd want to understand, what do you think in terms of technology, what are the challenges which has still not been addressed? So while technology has been there for the, let's say, 15, 20 years that we've been talking about, 10 years more effectively, but the challenges which have not been addressed by technology so far, according to you, which still is not making the life easier for sales reps?
From a CPG context, a lot of us talk about how is the technology helping us either sell more or sell to more, broadly, those two buckets. In fact, we were talking about it in our own leadership team some time back. How many of these platforms that a lot of us use, whether it's SFA or DMS or BI, are actually having either the shopper or the customer at the heart of it? What does Ramesh General Store actually need to maximize his profitability or his business? Right? If you think of it from that perspective, most technologies today are, and with all respect to what they have done, because that's always a journey, right? Maybe somebody will answer that question. We have seen some glimpses of it. Is there a technology that can help answer that question to a seller at a storefront? That if I do this today, I will make life that much better for my customer, because it's somewhere attending to the needs of the shopper. Adoption of technology by a seller, right? Even today, and I can certainly talk about organizations where I have worked, you do all the concept advocacy around it. You tell them how it will make their life simpler, how it will make them earn maybe incentives, maybe for somebody else recognition is a thing to look forward. There is always this factor, if I can use the word fear factor, in the seller's mind, right? I can narrate an anecdote. I'm sure all of us will relate to it. I was talking to one of my salesmen when we launched an app about 2 years back, and we told him everything about it. कहते सर वो तो सब ठीक है, लेकिन आपने मेरे ऊपर सैटेलाइट लगा दिए.
Yeah.
Right? That was his interpretation, that basically what you're doing is now tracking me. This problem cannot be solved by technology alone. It's also the organization's prerogative or responsibility to address that fear factor, and how do they feel more empowered versus more monitored, right? How do they feel more enabled versus more sort of tutored at a store level? And what can sales organizations and technology do to address that? Those are the two things I think I can share as thoughts with all of us in that.
Actually, we have picked up in our research when we do our dipstick, and it's there as a part of our experience center, where we put in certain anecdotes which sales rep says, which is almost exactly. And since Ambuj has been there, so he's seen, Manish has seen. So, sales reps say that I use SFA because companies want me to use SFA. I don't need it, one. Secondly, he says that I use it because my boss needs data and he wants to look at what I'm doing, right? So the whole thing that am I feeling empowered just does not come across. No sales rep says that this is helping me drive my day-to-day sales. That's point number one from a sales point of view, which is so important, right? And what you said is even a bigger point, that okay, let's say a few companies, certain companies like us are still thinking about sales rep. Are we really thinking about the customer, right? So let's say most of the automation, recommendations, all of that we do is to help the sales rep sell better to the customer, which is retailer here. Who is thinking about what a retailer wants, beyond a point, right? So that's a very, very valid question, and I'm sure a lot of things that are happening, and we have Ambuj here. We'll talk about what we are doing in that domain along with partnerships from Coke, and what other learnings which Ambuj will have on answering some of these questions. So we'll talk about that. But before I come to this topic of customer, I'll still have few more questions on solving the problem of sales reps. And we'll go to Ashish, is CEO for an EVP for Diageo, and again he's been working in different geographies, different regions, had an extensive experience across different FMCG company, including Reckitt in his previous stint. And his current organization has a relatively different way of selling than a regular CPG, where actually the role of sales rep even becomes more important. And it's not a very transactional role the way it is for a regular CPG company. So maybe Ashish, if you can throw some light on how do you see the role of sales reps in the industry that you have worked with of late, though you have worked with CPG industry across different domains, with the emergence of new technologies that you may be seeing around, yeah?
Thanks, Ranjit, for having me. So, just to set the context, for the alcohol industry, we just have 80,000 outlets in India compared to 8 million outlets in consumer, industry. So for us, every outlet is like imagine, because we are selling billions of dollars of revenue just from these 80,000 stores. And so what happens is, and the amount of SKUs that are there in each store is outrageous. The amount of beer to, whites, if you look at vodkas, gins, whiskeys, and within whiskeys you'll have international whiskeys, malts, super deluxe whiskeys, and then there's tequilas. Everything under the sun sells through the same store. And if you can imagine the role of the salesman because each state, because liquor is a state subject, each state has a very different, RTM, right? So with that, the role of the salesman is really not about only selling. It goes much more into demand generation, because what we see in the store is, you are releasing anyway a lot of time of the salesman through a lot of this. So we are using the time to actually change the way we are, exciting consumers to drive demand generation. So we do a lot of, recognition. It is image recognition, AI-led recognition to tell you where the planogram should be, if it's in the right location or not. If it's not in the right location, what quickly you need to do to put it in the right location. What are the kind of POSMs you have executed in the store? What are the kind of POSMs competition executed? So is your share of visibility better or worse? Is the share of activations better or worse? So if you go to a bar, our key account manager should tell you in the back bar, we are better off or worse off in terms of our market share, and what's the menu listing, or what's the activation happening in the outlet. So is there a tent card? Is there everything? So the role both for a sales as well as a key account for us has shifted from selling to better merchandising, better category, creation. We do a lot of focus time on innovation. So we say, if we just launched Don Julio, which is the world's biggest tequila in India. So we are saying, what can you do better with a Don Julio, in terms of portraying the liquid, in terms of the product being the hero? Can you put it in the right location? How will the consumer interact with it? What are the best serves you can do through your own tech that you have? Because we have a lot of tech that the salesman has or the key account manager has. So we have kind of used this whole thing into a very different dimension, moving from sales to more demand generation, Ranjit.
I think that's really important and really happy to see. And since obviously your business hinges on certain key customers, so naturally knowing about those drivers becomes very, very important in your industry, and maybe it has evolved in a relatively better than other industries. But the key question still remains, which Lalit raised, that we still keep thinking about the sales reps and how they can sell better in a store. Do we even care about what the store wants? Now, this question, having worked in different organizations and having seen the transition, and also, as we work with different organizations, the moment we talk about what a customer wants or giving that liberty or empowerment to the customer, there is a huge pushback from the sales team. As if your sales will not happen if you allow the retailer to buy, right? So the moment we talk about something which is empowering the retailer and making a choice, unilaterally every time I have seen that people say, "Fir to sales nahi hoga." as if, and I've been challenging this in different ways, I say, okay, one time a retailer may buy because you have a relation, because you have shown some desperation some point in time, or maybe because he wants to oblige you. But can he keep buying just because you have a relation, right? But because the sales is a very hardcore relationship-driven, let's say, profession, so we maybe somewhere we over-index relation, and we believe that everything is happening because of relation. Now, since and I've been questioning this for a long time. When I was heading sales for my previous organization, but now I can say over the last few years that I can see that there is a valid proof that if you allow the customers to buy, things changes for good, and it doesn't bounce back the way you expect that they will stop buying. Because ultimately a retailer is buying for himself to fulfill the demand which is there in the store. He's not obliging a sales rep or a company by buying that, right? Obviously there's a initial push and so on and so forth. Now, when I'm saying that over the last few years, I'm seeing some validation of this theory that yes, this works, and this is demonstrated at scale with certain by certain companies here in India and outside the world, by actually giving that empowerment to the retailers, which is through eB2B. Now, there is a lot of ups and downs which has happened in the eB2B industry, as we see right now over the last 5 years. Almost every company has tried and almost every company has failed. And a lot of companies have tried with us and failed. But there are only 4 companies in the world who have succeeded in eB2B. And still most of them I see as skeptics and 20 issues, why it doesn't happen. There are issues, I'm not saying there are no issues, right? Which is AB InBev globally, Unilever, ITC here in India, and Coke globally in multiple markets. And thankfully we have representation from Coke here, Ambuj, who's been the front face for leading the eB2B in India, especially in Southeast Asia, for Coca-Cola. And the way Coke has demonstrated the adoption of eB2B has surprised me multifold, because like I said, I have seen companies succeeding, I have seen companies failing, and I never expected that a company can so fast execute a new technology at scale with millions of stores and with metric which will surprise you. So when we talk about whether the sales goes down if a retailer is making a choice, the answer is already that it doesn't. The answer is it increases, and for that I have Ambuj, who will share more thoughts on the whole transformation which he's been a part of Coca-Cola system, of how it has shaped up and how it is shaping up. Yeah.
We are a system which is built for scale, and you've been part of it, so you know it. And I was looking at some numbers only before walking in. We were somewhere around close to 40,000 outlets onboarded on eB2B same month in August last year. Now we are a little over 800,000 and we are adding more. So we see there is always a customer adoption, but it does not happen only by chance. You're right. You have to have customer at the center of it. As long as it's customer-centric, it is solving for something that the customer needs. And you keep building on that particular premise. But of course, it also has to link back to what your salesman would want, what the company objectives are, and so on. So before the scale-up or rapid scale-up happened, I'm talking from experience, we also went through a lot of learning. Learning, not just learning, it also started off with some failures. We also went through our own hit and trial method as well. First thing that we learned was it has to solve for customer, it has to be customer-centric. And that is what is helping us grow at scale. Second is, once you're solving for the customer, what is the business objective that you are trying to achieve or the company is trying to achieve? In some cases, some of the failures that we saw recently as well are not scaled to that extent was also because what do you go for? Do you go for valuation? Do you go for value creation? For CPG companies, it's always to go for value creation and help you sell your product more. So that's what we actually learned and we went for. And then once you're clear with the customer centricity and then business model, then you start designing the product, the technology,
the capability gaps, both tech as well as human. And then comes the toughest part, which is change management. In India and also in Southwest Asia, but more in India, what we noticed was the customer or the outlet in our case was more happy to adopt. We were slower to change, or even the rate of adoption at the outlet level is higher than the rate of change internally that we have. But thankfully, we have partners who believed in it, who had seen, who believed in the benefit of it, and stayed behind it. From a customer centricity point of view, and I'm just quoting a few things that we noticed. We also thought that till the time you don't give a monetary benefit for the customer over and above what he or she is getting offline, they might not go for it. But we were surprised. Simple things like transparency of pricing was a big one. They felt empowered. Second simple thing, like even he does not control, the outlet does not control when the salesman will visit. So he or she is in a hurry at that point in time. So the timing of order, he's empowered to order whenever. So the convenience factor, transparency, convenience, and of course service has to be top notch. So your both digital service and your delivery service has to be top notch. And these simple things also help you drive a lot of adoption. Yes, initially when we went in, there were apprehensions with sales team thinking, what will my role be? And to some extent, while to your point, do they see that as a satellite over them, or do they feel empowered? We also see that they are also learning because they see all this happening around them. So they want to move fast in adopting such technologies which will help them grow, not just in the current roles that they're doing, but even. So I think a combination of leadership belief, combination of customer centricity, a combination of what's happening in the universe around you helped us scale fast.
Great, thank you, Ambuj. If I were to tell you or ask you to pick one, what is the biggest reason do you think, if at all eB2B succeeds, why does it succeed? And if there's one reason for that.
Sorry,
No, I'm saying if I were to ask you, you gave 3 reasons, right? For success of eB2B. If I were to ask you, what is the biggest reason for success of eB2B? The number 1 reason.
Number 1 is customer centricity and customer benefit.
Right, so belief of the company in making it all transparent and giving empowerment to the customer, which is where we started from, which was Lalit's point. So Lalit, since you raised this point, and eB2B is at advanced stage, mature stage with certain companies, early stage with certain companies, non-existent for certain companies, what is your take on what you could hear about maybe eB2B and how it is transforming? Do you see that shaping up in some form? We don't know what form exactly may come, right? Eventually we are seeing a form where a retailer will become more empowered. In a certain way, Manish was exposed to a certain situation where distribution was happening differently than the regular part. So any take you have on that?
Yeah, so I think it's...
nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. So eB2B is on its way. Some organizations have taken the lead well and truly. Honestly, we are probably a notch behind it. And probably that's one takeaway from this, fraternity meet that I'm here on. Just 2 things that I think forward. Again, thinking about retailers, right? A lot of us have spent many years just spending hours and hours and hours talking to retailers, and then you start to think, what does this guy really want from this tool or from this technology? And I'm a novice in that, so pardon my naivety, but what I'm wondering is how many of the current platforms today are essentially, in simple terms, assortment ordering tools versus how many of these tools today help him make an intelligent decision on what to order. And now compare this to what's happening today, in the other channels, which is e-commerce, also modern trade, right? A lot of the success of those channels, other than obviously convenience and a whole lot of things which we all know about, is an e-commerce player would know essentially what's the right assortment at each dark store.
Yep.
Eventually, they're getting there. And that's one big reason for success. And today if you talk to retailers, one of their pain points amongst many, many others, इसके बाद हमें पता नहीं होता कि अभी demand क्या आएगी. So customer comes, he asks for something, and that hurts him like anything, right? In any case, life today is tough for them. So every dime of value is lost is painful. Now what I'm thinking is, and like I said, I'm a novice, so if there are tools doing it, it's great. But can that tool, just like the sales rep tool is helping him sell intelligently, how many of these tools can help him buy intelligently? Predictive demand, what's going to happen in and around my neighborhood? There is a festival 7 days later. Can that be built into my predictive demand and things like that? I'm sure people on the technical side, on the business side have thought about it. I'm just placing probably a very simple thought on the table. And the second one I think is a bit provocative, which is that how many eB2B tools will the retailer handle eventually? If I have one, Manish has one, Ambuj has one, and so does Ashish, how many will he handle? And therefore, and this is where it gets a bit provocative, is there going to be a point in time for a unified platform for him? Because, see, you have to think about him, not the company, eventually if something has to succeed. Is there something that can happen? And I know there is non-compete and compliance and everything that has to be thought through, but make life simple for him for you to succeed. Is there a case eventually for a platform which is unified across whichever organizations he chooses to engage with? You don't force that on him. And I think that's where, so look, another example, DMS, early days of DMS 15, 20 years back, what would most of our distributors tell us? I already have a system. There's another company who already has a system. Ab teesra software aap lagayenge. How do I manage all this? Right? And that's still an unsolved issue actually.
It is.
Somehow it's managing.
Because it's the number of organizations there is lesser. They have 3, 4, 5 firms to deal with. Retailer has, I don't know, 100. So that's the other thing which is on my mind. So the tool is here to stay. I mean, it's just going to get more bigger and better. But futuristically speaking, these are probably the two, solves all of us have to put our mind to.
No, I think again, great point, Lalit. So 2 points you raised, and since we have been, and Ambuj is also here, and thankfully ITC team is also here, who has been leading this rate. So very valid point. So first point is it making the retailer or helping the retailer make an intelligent choice? So it is. So both of these systems, whether it is enabled with our technology in terms of predictions or some company specific, all the eB2B at scale that we are talking about, even Unilever or eB2B, each one of them are equivalent to any kind of Amazon or a Zomato or Swiggy in terms of intelligence or more. Why I'm saying intelligence or more is because, see, you still have transaction data of a retailer, right? Amazon doesn't have all of your transaction data. You may be dealing with multiple platforms, right? But a retailer to buy your company is only buying from, largely, unless he buys something from a wholesaler, right? Is buying from you. So from a machine learning, let's say intelligent prediction point of view, the behavior adoption point of view, actually the prediction is as good as 60-70% accuracy. And actually when we are saying that it is driving a retailer to buy more, it is driving a retailer to buy more because there are relevant SKUs that he is able to see, and you'll be surprised, without quoting numbers to a specific company and all the companies that we are talking about here, their average order value increases by about 30% when it is a self-order. Each of the retailer who have adopted have ordered more SKUs, at least 20 to 30% more SKUs which they never bought earlier. So while we believe that there is a warm body which is required to sell, we have experienced that if a retailer given a choice is buying more new products, he's buying more, let's say, cross-sell products, and it is proven with data. Maybe Ambuj can talk a little more about that.
So for retailer, what he knows is what he has been buying and selling. So that knowledge is already there with him. He also knows what the customers or shoppers are coming to his store and asking for, and probably he does a mix in his own mind and with whatever data that he has. He does that calculation and he's able to order, and also with the help of course, the salesman. But on the tool or on the app, he's getting all this already because that's in his base somewhere, buying pattern, how much he buys, when he buys. But you can build a lot more intelligence as well. What he doesn't know is what the store in his vicinity is buying. What he doesn't know is what are the new launches and what all campaigns companies are running. So I can actually now link my marketing campaign and say that, okay, in this vicinity, in a residential society, this kind of a brand and a pack is being pushed, and I am running a consumer campaign over there. That goes into the retailer's prediction as well. And all that is happening currently. It's already live. So all that helps you sell more. Coming to a very important question, and we don't have an answer for it. How many apps will the retailer have at the end of it? Frankly, that's one of the first questions or many questions that we face even when we go to new markets, and I don't have an answer. But experience so far tells that it is not just the app. It is the overall package of service delivery. So, for example, if he's ordering on my 𝗿𝗫𝗍𝗶 app, that's our eB2B tool, and does not get the service, then that app is useless for him. So I have to meet the basic, it's a full bundle package deal. Tomorrow, will there be consolidation? Yes, maybe. Will there be no consolidation? I can't say, but I will never know if I don't start. And what if tomorrow there is consolidation, but I had not started?
Right.
So I don't have a chance in any case. So I'm ruling myself out of that chance before I start. So it's very important. I mean, the way we saw it, it was very important for us to start and scale and give that benefit to the customer as soon as possible. But as I said, there is a complete package. All of us also have multiple apps for a similar solution, while most of us will use Amazon to order, but we'll also have Flipkart. There are two food service aggregators. Most of us will have both food service aggregator app over here and use them. So all that, ultimately, you have to provide the right choice to the customer, and customer is king and will decide whether to keep that app or not.
Yeah. So I think,
just to
sorry,
add,
please.
Add to what you're saying. See, the interesting thing is, with the amount of geopolitical events and the natural, every day some disruptions that are happening, there is no way you're going to have a very steady state sales force. You will need these kind of platforms. So tomorrow there's a riot or there is just a heat wave, we've advised our salesmen not to go when we've seen 50 degrees, kind of centigrades. There's been crazy rains, crazy calamities, or there are buns in a lot of cities. The point is, eB2B is going to be always an alternative option. And why would it really doesn't surprise me if you're going to get more sales when the person is browsing, because I myself buy much more when I browse on my own. All of us, whether you look at Amazon or you go to even a key account, when you're browsing on your own, you end up buying much more than what you had planned for. Yeah. So you got the time, you got the convenience. So salesman sar pe khada nahi hai or 10 salesmen sar pe khade nahi hai, payment nahi pooch rahe, ye nahi pooch rahe. So you are in your own piece and you are then checking out all the assortment, and suddenly you realize, okay, this SKU I did not buy, this is something interesting I'd like to buy, this is a larger pack I'd like to buy, which is not in my store. So if you're getting 30% uptick, I'm really not surprised, because just browsing on your own is always the best thing to do. You end up watching more movies also on an Amazon, when you are doing, because it will give you your own assortment out there, and you end up consuming much more in a Netflix or an Amazon, which is so much different, than what you had planned to, right?
So true.
And to some extent, see that many-to-many buying already is happening. To believe that my distributor, my salesman is making all the sales in a shop, that's not the truth anymore. The guy is anyway on a many-to-many buying. So and you're right, I mean, when you look at attrition numbers across sales teams, 30 to 50% attrition is a given these days for the front line.
Yeah.
Which means, if I were to look at my numbers, assume it's at 40, every second salesperson making a call at that store is a new guy. And he doesn't know anything about that store, right? So the store knows more about itself than what we give the credit to our salesmen at times.
Yep.
And that, I think, is the foundation why companies need to move to B2B very quickly. Because I believe a lot of us had the same question to ourselves as a consumer, that how many apps do we operate? I mean, I see at my home, there are 8 apps on my wife's phone, about 10 on my kid's phone, 10 on mine, and we're all buying food and grocery.
Yeah.
Right? And we're all somehow surviving with it.
Yeah.
So there is definitely some scare, but there is also a merit in believing that you start the journey. The faster you start, the higher the chances that you will stick around being one of those apps. The later you start, lesser the chances, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, thank you. I think it's been a really interesting discussion, and just to close on this because we are up with time. So two things which we leave it with. So one is that sales rep needs to be empowered. Technology is for them, and they should not be working for technologies. Thankfully, with new age technologies, we are almost there, because these things genuinely work to help us and augment our competencies, point number one. And secondly, to the question that whether eB2B, and very valid question I've been hearing for the last 5 years, of whether eB2B, how many apps will have, how many apps a customer can really deal with. And Ambuj said it very rightfully. We don't know that. We don't have answer to that. The point is, who will survive? And you also said, Manish, who will survive? People who are in the game will survive. Point number one. Secondly, everybody may not be in the game or cannot be in the game, because if you do not have a huge portfolio, you may not have that bandwidth to really operate on that scale. Eventually, the way we see, and it is already happening in the world with a lot of large companies who have large deployment of eB2B, they have started aggregating market, making it as a marketplace. So we predict that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have single principal marketplace. So if it is X company, obviously they will have some non-compete stuff, but 20 companies can get in that. I was in Jakarta last week. The biggest cigarette player of Jakarta has launched a big marketplace called Sampurna. Every FMCG company that I met was aware of that, and they were already working on that, right? Coke in multiple markets are trying different bottlers of Coke. I've seen that they're trying marketplace model. AB InBev has demonstrated eB2B marketplace, and their last report was they have done $1.5 billion of transaction on their marketplace. They partnered with more than 200 brands. So this is shaping up right now. We will have these forms and shapes appearing in a way which will make it more visible, more logical, more doable. But yes, it's an exciting time for things to change, from sales, route to market, distribution, all of things that we have been a part of for the last 20, 30 years. And I'm quite sure that we'll be the change agents for taking the whole industry to the future. With that, I'll really thank all of you for your time, and looking forward to meeting next time. Really thank you for that.